development managers running the video, our executive director, Mary Louise Helbig, is at the door, our EIRs, raise your hands, Jack, Quentin up here. So if you have questions about I-10 post, that's why I'm pointing out those faces. You can come ask us questions. But thank you so much for joining us. We do programming here every second Thursday. Hence the name of Second Thursday Adventure Cafe. Second Thursday event we've been doing for 3 years prior to Adventure Cafe even being here in town. So we've been partnering with them on our programming, monthly programming since 2014 when they showed up. So tonight we have a really exciting program, as I do say so myself, since we just had to put it together, so I'm excited about it. I think you guys will enjoy it too. One of the things we always hear when we ask our community what they want to hear about at Venture Cafe is they want to hear, they really like hearing other founders' stories, what they've learned on their journeys, just a little bit about their story in hopes that somebody that maybe just a few steps further down the path can help us as we're going through this. So how many people in here are part of a startup team? Okay, so it can be a scary, lonely roller coaster ride, and learning from each other, I think, is one of the things that keeps us all sane in that world. So we've got some great folks that are all across the pathway, I think, in the journey of a company and in the journey of an entrepreneur. Tonight we have Matt Hansard with Final Thoughts, Ravi Sahu with Strayos, Nancy Ty Murray with Clear, and Chris Cardinal with Well-To-Do. At least he's my exit guy, so he was with Well-To-Do. So they're going to each tell a little bit about their story, and then we'll have some questions and time for you guys to ask your questions. I wanted to just point out sort of the inspiration for tonight was this map that we do. It's the second time we've done it as a part of our impact report. If you didn't pick one up on the way in, there's plenty in the back. But this is a map that we put together that shows the different resources here in the St. Louis community for tech entrepreneurs and sort of where on the entrepreneurship pathway they would be relevant to you. So we had been doing our broader ecosystem, here's all the great players map for a number of years, and people were like, this is great, lots of resources and co-working spaces and stuff, but where would that be relevant to me? So that was the driving force behind this map. So starting with idea stage and encouraging you to get a mentor early along, and then I spent a ridiculous amount of time on the minutiae, nuanced symbolism, so I appreciate anybody that would like to see how many things they can find, like he gets a helmet after he has an idea, he has the woman running the company by the end, she's lost her heels. She had heels once, they were gone by the end as well. So lots of, but anyway, that's showing the journey and lots of the different resources. The I-10 resources are in blue, and then a lot of our ecosystem partners are in red. So, and as our entrepreneurs tell their stories, feel free to throw in whatever resources were helpful to you, or things that you think others should know about. So, without further ado, I'm going to let each of them sort of tell us a bulk of their journey, and then, like I said, I've got some questions for them, and then we'll definitely open it up and have you guys ask some as well. So I want to start first off with Matt, who's probably the earliest in the process for us, and we'll go from there.
Are we using the mic?
We're just talking. That would be ideal, but I'm not sure that it's cooperating, but we can see. You can talk loud for a second while I figure this out.
Hello, my name is Matthew Hansard. I am the CEO and founder of Final Thoughts. Final Thoughts is a digital mental health app touting the therapeutic benefits of legacy work and legacy projects for those diagnosed with serious illness. That is where we are today. Where we were when we started was me driving around one day listening to an NPR story about people that were firm believers in the rapture of the apocalypse. And thinking from that story, I'm sure there's something these people would have to say after that has occurred. And could we create a product marketed to this demographic where we would say, give us your email addresses, give us your messages, and after that happens, we will send them out for you. All in all, that's not really an idea. But we got this idea of this posthumous message delivery service, of this company that would store thoughts, videos, images, allow a user to set recipients in groups, and at a future date, final thoughts would deliver those messages. I had had a few other entrepreneurial ideas in my life, and I think like anyone does, you start to vet those ideas to friends, family, other business associates, other people that you know have been successful. And in the past, I had some ideas, but they didn't really come to fruition. But I had this idea, and I took that same pathway and started vetting the concept. And I had some feedback, and people said, yes, I really believe that this could be a product. I think this is a technology that if you look ahead 30, 40, 50 years is probably adapted. It seems inevitable. Who brings this technology, how it's brought? Nobody knows. Okay, so that's at least something to work off of. I think early with an idea, you start looking for partners, and definitely partners not only to come in with ideas and some labor, but ones that will put some skin in the game, have some onus to this company, and obviously you're looking to fundraise early. You know you can bootstrap a little bit. And so I found 2 early partners as my co-founders, and we knew we had this idea. We were non-tech founders. We knew we had to build a technical product. But before we started writing any code, we wanted to see if this product actually could exist. So we exhibited a couple trade shows, just talking to what we believed was going to be our simple users. We made a teaser video, we made a landing page, we made a 10-question survey, and we would take that with us and see what kind of feedback we could get. What we found early in a lot of those were the other people that had tried this idea before us. And to say that this space is littered with dead bodies is not a pun. There were probably 25 companies that had tried this idea before us. So we spent some time talking to those CEOs, talking to people involved in those organizations, and I think what you always find is, half those people failed just because they aren't entrepreneurs. But the other half failed that were entrepreneurs, and we wanted to find out why. Was the timing wrong? Did they fail to solve some major roadblocks? And we found some there. And they even said to us as we were meeting one group, where were you guys 36 months ago? We needed that. So we really pushed hard with this idea for everyone, that we were going to bring this as Facebook Afterlife. And we pushed and we pushed and we pushed, and it was going okay. We engaged the I-10 program early on. Right about that time, we went and we said, we don't know what we're doing. We have this concept, can you help us? And we started using Melissa's roadmap to go through that process, find resources, find mentors. And we did, we found a lot of mentors, and we found one mentor with I-10 that said, I know someone that has tried this before, and they failed miserably. Well, I had heard that before, but not to this caliber of fail. This person had a ex-PlayStation CTO, and this person was running, now the CEO of a publicly traded company. So I believe I had to take his words of advisement, and his words were, Matt, do not do this. It will not work. You cannot get people to consider their legacies. People are supposed to financial plan, and they don't. They're supposed to go see the lawyer and do their will, and they don't. People will not do this. So we started to think of, where can we find people or users that are over that hump that will consider their legacies? And we started interviewing a lot of people, and we started interviewing some patients, primarily cancer patients. And this one young lady told me, I thought, a very compelling story. She was diagnosed with a type of cancer that was highly curable, but yet, as soon as she had that diagnosis, she had her eggs extracted because she was so concerned about her legacy. That is obviously a real legacy. She's worried about that, but that diagnosis alone was enough to push her over. So we pivoted. Well, first we locked ourselves in our office for maybe like 3 weeks, and we took our company and we turned it into like a all hobbies app where we could still try to repurpose our tech stack. And I mean, we pivoted 180, we went back, we ended up only pivoting a little bit, but spending some time there and figuring out what that narrow vertical was. You can't be all for everybody. You need a sales focus. You need to be able to say, yes, I can write a pitch to something, not to everything. We pivoted into this digital mental health space. We've had considerably better traction. We've run some really successful Facebook ad campaigns. We are able then to, with our tech stack, actually focus it towards something, make it look a certain way, have a UX, UI that makes it look like healthcare. Find a healthcare client, it all needs to line up. And we spent a lot of time really validating the second space. We weren't going to make the same mistake. I mean, I'm sure we're going to make many more mistakes again. Let's say that exact same one. All in all, I don't know if starting a company based on an idea is the best idea. Maybe start a company based on a need surely would be a better start. But here we were. We were this far in. We had a technical stack. We had done a lot of stuff. And so we thought, how do we continue this company forward? And that is where we are today, trying to launch this, trying to find enterprise clients in this palliative care space that we can sell our product to. That's where we are now.
Ravi?
Hi everybody, my name is Ravi Sahu and I'm the founder and CEO of Strayos. And what Strayos does is we are a data analytics and machine learning company for mining industry. We help miners basically to analyze where to drill holes, how deeper it needs to be, how much amount of material is there so that they can effectively mine better minerals or stones for the infrastructure process. How did I fell into this? You know, it doesn't look like a guy like me, going into the mining or heavy industry. My background is in enterprise software for about 12 years, and I don't fall into the typical category of entrepreneur. I was happy with my corporate life for 12 years. I basically enjoyed whatever I did, but I always had this kind of, I was always like a misfit in the corporate world as well, like trying to create different things inside, like a mad scientist trying to do different things, and the corporate never agreed, on my product philosophy. So I always had that mindset behind that, and it's basically I started to get involved into the part of my job was also to engage with other startups, and that kind of led me to the creation of more of a startup factory inside the corporate system. But that was not anywhere related to how the company got created. I was helping a customer inside the corporate, and they gave me a problem of creating a data system to create a sensor platform and imaging platform to gather the data and start building this platform where we can generate machine learning analysis for manufacturing plant. That was the idea. The corporate said, there's not enough money, there's not enough budget in here, and where we cannot get it rolling for entire product development. But I got excited about this problem. I thought maybe this is a side project I should pursue myself. So I started it as a prototype myself of creating a side project inside. And during that time, I was also in the WashU MBA program. And it happens that it's always kind of, let's call it like the luck factor or whatever. In this WashU program, we had an innovation entrepreneurship, that's like a group project. In that side project, I pitched there, and in that same group, I had a gentleman, who came from the mining industry, which has about 30 years of experience in the same industry. He said, this is a side project for you. I think this can be taken into the mining industry, and which can completely, it's a game changer, because we've been using the legacy system, and that has not shown the results more effectively, but this will be more effective. So I thought, maybe you're joking with me. This can never, whatever I'm creating, this is just my side project, and I'm actually, really ashamed also to, show it to, outside world right now. That was the status of the prototype at that time. But he tried to convince me that, we should take a meeting with this person who comes from the mining industry, and maybe you will see some potential there. So we drove down to Rolla, which is they have an experimental mine there, and we talked about what's in the prototype, and the first meeting was almost like, what you have is nothing, and it's basically the conclusion was whatever the side project I have, you should consider that as a side project. I never even think about like moving into a different direction, what your crazy friend is telling you. And that was, it stopped there. We wrapped our entrepreneurship project as just as presentation, and that was it. So that was back in late 2015. Fast forward early March 2016, somehow again we met this with the crazy friend, and the crazy friend again has like, you should seriously think about that, and like you start doing something what you have. And then at that point of time, again, the idea, just looking at the idea, there is no formation about the idea. It's just a side project where I'm just trying, as a technologist, I'm trying to just experiment myself something. So I have no idea about whether this is an idea, whether it is solving a particular need. So what we did is, I said, if you have something, what you think about, this could be an idea, what problem actually is going to solve. So he took me to a 2-day class to Rolla drilling and blasting there. He said, sit down in this class and understand everything about, this industry. And then I took a class from the professor. He told me that this is all the entire processes, and this is what the problems that they go through. And that's what sparked my interest, that whatever my side project is there, that at least, if it's solving a little bit of problem here, and that's, I can focus on that. So we started like, tinkering with the problem first, and the more I got to know more about the problem, I became obsessed that, this is a real problem here, and then we started to know more about the industry in itself. But again, that was not again like, convincing factor for me. As an entrepreneur, I was like most pessimistic type of entrepreneur, where I never thought about like, it will go further. I always like tried to kill whatever I was trying to kill, this friend was telling me. So one day basically one of the professors from the same university, he said, we should talk to this industry player that might be that is already interested in talking to you. And that was the time where they saw the first prototype, and that was basically just a computer vision prototype which takes the images and generates basically the models, and it does nothing for the industry what they have in a very crude version. And what they realized is this will affect a lot of their business processes, but if they give us the feedback, and if they nourish this basically what we have at the moment. So what I thought about that moment is basically when you think about this moment, where it can go, it's kind of the Godfather moment, right? Matt talked about like you need to think about like the partner, but when I think about this moment, is like whenever we think about like starting as an idea or the product, this is like the Godfather moment, where you have to look for a Godfather who can bless you at that moment and continue handhold you for at least like couple of years. And that was the moment for us that they said, we're going to upfront all your like procurement and like this cost. And now, are you ready to move out of this side project or not? And that was the time I said, I think this side project has some potential now. So we, yeah, finally here. So like just kind of show me the money kind of thing there. So and that's what they start off really understanding the real problem, and that's where we start to get to know more about the real problem. And that after identifying the problem about how they do that, because I don't come from the industry, I had to actually understand not just the lingo, but how they behave. I started visiting mines. Guy from a typical desk job, now I've been spending time in the field, understanding the entire process. So that shaped not only like the conviction about this is not a side project, but also how the problem itself is there just by like visiting them and understanding their mindset. So the lesson that I take from that is basically, if I would have not been experienced this like 2-day class that I had, and also after that going into this mindset of how they actually operate, I would have never started this business. So that's basically where the startup like formation came in. Fast forward, like after we started to finish the prototype and then we started testing, we started getting like terrible results in early 2017, like about from our data analytics. It's mostly because we started to build something. We thought that what we have built, it's going to work in every real scenarios. But the mining industry is like completely different in nature. There are a lot of like, it's kind of a constant moving factory, and you have to adapt to that constant moving factory in different scenarios. We built for like, only one typical like mining standard. And when they started testing it, we had like various issues in the accuracy side, the product side. So again, it's like retrading was a use case. But once we have the product, we thought that this is going to go and be applicable for the entire horizontal mining industry, and that's where we went wrong. That point of time, luckily we got engaged at I-10, and we were super awesome mentors and EIRs at that time, who convinced us to go deeper in one use case, which is drilling and blasting use case of the mining, because you cannot touch the entire mining industry with your data analytics use case. And we thought that, no, that's not possible, and that's what we are building. We need to focus on the entire mining industry as a vertical use case, like wide use case. And the customer who gave us the early adoption, who was using us, they were also asking us to go deeper in this use case. But as a product person, you're always like thinking about like you can build entire thing, and that was one of the mistakes that we were making early on. So we took the advice of the mentor from I-10, which was like a huge thing, which completely pivoted our entire, not only the business model, but it started showing the results of the accuracy of the product that we have built. So, and also, most importantly, we started to see like similar adoption from the other customer base that we started to see after that. So later on in 2017.
I want to make sure everyone gets it. So leave a little bit of suspense for the questions. So I want to make sure that Nancy.
Awesome. So I'll wrap up where we are right now. We are so far our product is operational in 280 job sites. We're operational in 8 countries at the moment, and 2019 for us is mostly the year of the scale for us.
Okay, so Melissa started her talk off by pointing to this and said, look at the woman with the high heels, now she's wearing tennis shoes. Well, I'm not wearing stilettos, but I've still got some feel here. It kind of sums up where I am as a business. And it really resonated with me when you said, put it on a dime, and you said a crazy friend. Because I think maybe those are elements of all startups. So my name is Nancy Ty-Murray. I am the CEO of CLEAR, Customized Learning Exercises for Oral Rehabilitation. In a nutshell, we provide listening therapy to people who have hearing loss, and there are 48 million people in this country alone who have hearing loss. We do this by providing computerized games via the internet. So people subscribe to our service and play these games, and they maximize their residual hearing and develop those auditory brain skills. So I have a day job. I'm a professor at Washington University, and I run a very successful behavioral lab. And you define success by how many NIH dollars you bring in. And I'm probably one of the highest funded behavioral scientists at WashU. And I say that because I had a really comfortable life. I've worked with people that have been in my lab 20 years. I'm a professor, I got a tenure. 4 years ago, I'm giving my song and dance speech at a convention, and this old friend comes up to me and goes, you know, Nancy, you've been giving this pony show for 20 years. When are you going to take this auditory training, it's called auditory training or listening therapy, when are you going to take it out of the ivory tower and make it real? And I said, geez, as soon as somebody like you helps me, because this guy just so happens to be a bigwig at one of the big hearing aid manufacturers. Lo and behold, my crazy friend quit his job, retired, and now he's my director of marketing. So all of a sudden, and this is 2015, I'm going, whoa, I've got to start this business. So I immediately do what I do with my lab. I run my lab like a small business. So I sat down and I came up with a strategic plan in my brain. I came up with an idea of what the tactics were, and I came up with the idea of what administration is. Every business, you know, before you start pivoting on a dime and that sort of thing, you have to have a solid foundation of who you are, where you're going to be in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. It's right here. How you're going to get there, and then how you're going to do your day-to-day. Strategy, tactics, administration. That's how I run my lab, and that's how I'm running my company. So the first thing is, how do I get money? And Washington had something that was called the Bear, now it's called the Leap Challenge, you know. It's okay, I'll pitch to them. And at the time, Emory Toker was at Washington University in charge of all this stuff, and he calls me and goes, how would you like a student team to come over and help you with your pitch? You know, I'm a great speaker, but I'm a professor, I owe it to these students to show them how it's done. My team comes over, my project leader is 19. So I get up there, and so when I talk to my peer group, you know, auditory training, listening therapy, you know, it's fuzzy, warm, and we congratulate each other at the end. Oh, that was great, Nancy. Yours was too, you know, at academicians. I gave my speech, they panned it. And they were right. They were absolutely right. This 90-year-old completely rewrote my speech. I got up in front of the Bear Club and I won. So that gave me $31,000. Then I joined up with ITAD, and they have a Marine soldier who apparently has raised more money in St. Louis than any other person in the city. And kindly enough, he took me under his wing. So imagine being a room with a Marine whose license plate says a Glocko gun or something like that. And he's sitting there like this, and I'm supposed to get up by myself and give a pitch. And he goes, Nancy, you look nervous. Well, I'm a little bit nervous. He completely rewrote my pitch, so it got a lot better. And I went before WashU again for their first Greenleaf investment, and we won that because of the strength of our pitch. So now we've got a modest amount of money. Now, the auditory training games that we have has been funded by 10 years of NIH research funding. So I'm thinking, oh, these are great. These are just great. You know, my lab people, yeah, I pay them $10 an hour to play them, but they like them. So the first order of business was to find a programmer that we could afford to convert the lab versions, which were written in a language called LabVIEW, into JavaScript, which could run on the internet. So we interviewed a lot of local places. The ones I really liked would use our money within 3 days. That's how expensive they were. The worst one was somebody came in to give us a pitch about doing our programming, and she did not know how to hook a keyboard to her computer and plug it in. I kid you not. But fortunately, I had a good management team. I'll speed this up a little bit. Who was able to connect me with a company in India that they knew had worked with, and so we hired them. So that got us started. Now, flash forward in November of 2015, we became an LLC. In May of 2017, we hung up the shingle and started having customers. we quickly, this is where the pivot on the dime comes in. We quickly learned our games were juvenile. We got hacked by Russians within 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah, hacked and ransomed. In August, I managed to get us on the front page of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, which caused 200 people to log in simultaneously, which caused the whole site to crash. But I'm thinking, if we can't handle 200 people, what happens if my strategic plan works and we get 10,000 a month, what's going to happen? So this is where we pivoted on a dime. It wasn't quite on a dime, but in about May of this 2018, I made the conscious decision of we're going to pull back as a company, consider our first year beta testing. So we hired a programmer to redo our games. They were juvenile. We found a really wonderful person here who understands website design, who volunteered some time to help us make our site less fragile. We came up with entirely new marketing materials, and we called our audiologists who were using the product, who convinced us to change the business model, which is happening hopefully in the next week or two. We've been working 2 months to implement it. So my take-home message, and so now what we are, I say we're in this airplane and we're zipping down the runway, and we're just like that, getting into the eye of the tornado. If you've read that book, Inside the Tornado, which is a fabulous. I feel like we're entering that tornado that's going to take us up like this. What I've learned is, good planning, those 3 things, get the right people on the team, listen to bad news, as painful as it is, and respond to it.
Absolutely.
So, I have a little bit of a non-traditional story, I would say. At least the company does. I just moved to St. Louis about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now. So a lot of the organizations that I'm going to be talking about aren't going to be super familiar unless you know the scene there. But the origin story for the company Well-To-Do really goes back to 2007. I was in college, and I was a part of a group of friends that would get together on weekends for whiskey and entrepreneurial discussion. We organized a group, actually a book club, that we called the Venture Beyond Capital Book Club. And the concept was essentially we would read a book every couple of weeks or every month, and we just kind of keep track of where everybody was at. And then we'd get together and we'd discuss it, and we would bring ideas to the group, and then we would vet them. We would vet each other, essentially. And we came up with a bunch of different processes of like how to vet each other. A bunch of different models with different like acronyms that we had made up and written down. And one of the ideas that came up at this meeting in 2007 was the idea for a migraine prediction service. Migraines are a silent but colossal global health problem. There's about 1 billion migraine sufferers. There was a stigma in the past around migraine. I think that stigma is starting to disappear as we learn much more about it. We still don't know if it's a vascular issue or if it's a neurological issue, but we're making a lot of progress. So we came up with this idea, but at that time, there had been some research that showed that weather impacted migraine. So we're like, okay, cool, maybe we can use weather to try to build some sort of migraine prediction service. But we didn't have little GPS devices in our pockets that we were walking around with at that time. Nor were we able to just use an API to tap into NOAA in order to start collecting all of that data so that we could, again, build an algorithm and try to figure this out. And so, of course, naturally, with most ideas that happen in college, it just ended up getting tabled. One of the individuals who was in that book club with me, his name is Jim Console, he was a mechanical engineer at that time. He went on to become an MD, and while he was at KU Med, he started another business making microphones, had the entrepreneurial bug, which is still going strong. Shout out to Antlion Audio and Loud Mic for you guys. You need a gamer headphone for you or anyone else in your family. And he started that company, and I went on to start a couple other companies, so this was my first one. And we both kind of learned to code. Of course, he had learned basic coding, and he was a mechanical engineer. And you know, we had just kept in touch, and we realized one day, like, this idea kind of stuck on. This idea for a migraine prediction service just didn't go away. And all of a sudden, we're carrying around GPS devices in our pocket. We're collecting data on steps. We can access all the data from NOAA. And so we're like, hey, let's try to build this. Literally, it's like a weekend project. Let's try to do it. At this point, he was living in Portland, and I was living in Kansas City. So I flew up there, and we sat down, and we got together with one of our other friends that we kind of met. His name's Will Landecker. And Will just happens to be one of the world's foremost experts on computer vision learning algorithms. And he was at Portland State and the Santa Fe Institute. And we all got together and started doing it. Essentially, we wrote a scraper for Twitter, and we scraped every mention of the word migraine for about 3 months prior to this. And then I sat down and like hand sampled them one by one and said, this is a person actually having a migraine, or this is a person just talking about migraine. And then we put a bunch of features in and built an algorithm essentially, and it worked. It had high confidence and it had high accuracy, and we're like, huh, maybe there's a little something here. But how is this a business, right? What does this actually mean? And so we took that, and I went out and did a bunch of customer interviews and said, hey, migraine sufferer, how much would you pay for a migraine prediction service? And people were like, oh, I'll get my right arm, literally, for this. But we didn't know what the real value is. And I think that that's like kind of my first lesson that I learned in this specific venture, is understanding truly what value you're providing is absolutely key. Like, what is the real value that you're generating? Migraine prediction service is a cool feature, right? But what does the user actually do with that information, right? Maybe they can schedule and make a change in their schedule or something, but that doesn't actually impact their disease state. It doesn't make them any better. And that line of thought is really what led us to our first pivot, our first iteration on our product, which was to use not only the migraine prediction algorithm, but also to take a bunch of behavioral therapies that already existed and research that had already been done, and gamify them, and put them into a mobile application, and essentially use the migraine prediction service as the sticky that kept people coming back to the application while we worked them through gamified behavioral therapeutic challenges for migraine. And that was even just a concept at this point, even though we had the prediction algorithm built, and we were all technical co-founders at this point. And so we're like, okay, let's do this, right? So we like spun up an LLC, and I was in Kansas City and already active in the entrepreneurial community, and I was like, I'm gonna go give a 1 million cups pitch, and the 1 million cups in Kansas City was like 300 people show up every Wednesday. And I was like, I'm gonna go give a 1 million cups pitch, and I'm gonna like try to make some partners and like really integrate into the community. And I gave that, and it went really well. And the next thing I know, I got a grant from something similar to Arch Grants. It's called the Digital Sandbox Kansas City. I got a grant to help with the development of the application. I would think I was within the first year of the class, because they have a rolling application for that. So we got some dollars, which basically allowed us to bring on another developer to work alongside us, and to build out our MVP, which we finished in about 4 months together. And then we got it on we got this application, which is now was called Migraine Coach, onto the App Store. It became successful very quickly. We just through App Store search optimization, we were able to get quite a few downloads. There's one other key competitor in the space. It's called Migraine Buddy, and we were constantly battling back and forth for the top spot and the top downloads. But but really we saw great growth, but we didn't have great revenue at that point, right? And that's because the behavioral challenges weren't done. And that was what we were charging people for, but also that wasn't the long-term end goal, and I guess I can loop back around to this, is that we saw that, yeah, okay, there's a consumer play here, but we realized pretty quickly that, that if we were able to affect people's disease state, reduce the frequency, reduce the duration, or the severity of their migraines, then not only is there essentially potentially an adherence play, a pharmaceutical adherence play, but there's also a health plan, self-insured employer opportunity, because really there is a ton of money lost every year because of migraine. I think it's $36 billion, last I remember, and I haven't checked for probably a year and a half now. $36 billion in presenteeism, so that's lost work productivity. And so we were like, okay, we need to prove, not only do we need to build out these behavioral challenges, and we need to test out what the consumer market can bear to see whether or not that's a viable option to pay into, essentially, or to drive advertising into and to run into as a company. But also we need to gather enough data that we can convince self-insured employers and health plans and/or health plans to pick this up as a behavioral population health management tool. And so we focused on that. That was really what we started to focus on. We literally faked 2 years worth of behavioral challenges. What we did is we put a journey map into the application, and we built out the first 2 behavioral challenges, and the rest of them were blocked until you completed the next one. And so we were developing them in the application as people were working through the application. We just kept on piling on more and more users. So even though we hadn't had it completed, we were already getting users into it who thought that it looked like to them that this thing was 2 years worth of information, essentially. 2 years worth of programming, but it just wasn't. It was 2 months worth of programming. And we were just collecting data. That was our key. Was like our goal. Really, the golden nugget for us was to be able to show that Migraine Coach was as effective at not only predicting migraines, but at managing migraines as prescribable medication. You guys all know this. I'll preach to the choir a little bit here, but we're in an age where information and data is the infrastructure of the new economy, right? And we are it's changed the way that we find our partners in life. It's changed the way that we drive our cars. It's changed the way that we communicate with one another. But one thing that it didn't change or hadn't changed was healthcare. Healthcare was a stalwart. It didn't move very quickly at all, and for good reason, because people's lives were on the line. And so right when we were starting this company, we kept hitting our heads because we were pushing and pushing and pushing, and we wanted to implement this new, what we call a digital-ceutical into the market, digital therapeutic digital-ceutical, and try to get reimbursed for this, but the system just wasn't quite there at the time. And then it was. It all happened at the same time. We got a new healthcare law. Everybody started paying attention to how much healthcare cost. We got essentially new regulators whose eyes really opened to the opportunities that existed within the healthcare space. And the FDA started coming out with different guidance on how you can introduce essentially these digital therapeutic applications or applications with therapeutic intent to the market without getting your hand slapped. And it happened in really in a flood for us, where we kind of got overwhelmed at that point. And that's honestly where we hit our head. And so it was weird, right? Because we found a lot of success. Our initial tests showed that we were able to decrease migraine frequency by 25%, and then our second round of testing showed that we were able to decrease it by about 20%, which would equate to a huge amount of savings for self-insured employers, as well as a huge amount of savings for each individual migraine sufferer. But the problem here and this is very unique. I think, maybe it's not, but we didn't look like we were supposed to look, right? I'm not a doctor. My partner was. He was a doctor, but he wasn't a practicing doctor. He ran a microphone business. And then our other partner, Will, who was a brilliant data scientist, got picked off by Twitter almost immediately. They gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. We were like, run, Will, go take all the money. And his wife said the same thing, so we didn't want to be in that situation. And so here we are, a non-practicing physician who is experienced running a microphone company, and then a former political operative who run political campaigns and built political software who got into the health space. And no one, like, finding money was really difficult at that point because we didn't have that background, we didn't have that experience. And so we were really bootstrapping. We were working on getting partnerships and really focusing on driving and growing our consumer revenue, because at this point we did put up a software as a service, a subscription model for our mobile application users.
Chris, I just want to say,
I'm going to stop it right here.
I want to have a couple of times for some questions.
Long story short, what ended up happening is we were about to close the business. We were about to shut down, and we got 2 offers for acquisition from 2 different companies within a week. And I'm talking like, and really what they were interested in is they were interested in our technology, they were interested in our programming, and they were interested in our users and the data that we collected on this, because, well, there's a number of different reasons that are all coming to a head right now, but the migraine space, migraine management space is now finally something that people are paying attention to. It's always been asthma, it's always been diabetes, and now they're realizing what the cost is, and so we got picked up, basically. And yeah, so that happened in August of 2018. So 2013 is when we started the company. Early 2013, 2018 Q3 is when we sold. And yeah, so that's my story.
All right. Well, you guys have full stories, and I'm sorry we have a packed hour, but we've got a few minutes left, and that's what the Fabulous Community Gathering is for, is to pick the brains of these people even more. But I want to throw it out to you guys immediately for any questions that you have for our panel, because they answered a lot of the ones I had in my brain. So while we have a good 6 minutes.
Okay, my first question is, how did you find the prior companies that had the idea of hiring? Somebody mentioned that we found these companies that had you.
They found us.
They found you.
Through exhibiting, through having marketing material out there, through our sphere of influence. I know someone, I heard this pitch, and they came to us. We went and interviewed them. We went to find out as much as we could. But I can't say that we weren't looking. We were looking, but it does seem like we stumbled upon them every time we found them. Someone referred them, or they walked into a booth. We spent that first year exhibiting hard, trying to find our space.
So my question is, when you generate so much data in the migraine database, and is it not wild to sell them, because you do, like, I just downloaded the app and I was just logging in, it does ask for the name, so obviously if you didn't have name, it's different, but you have a name associated and you've left the data, how does it go with the HIPAA?
We're not integrated. Well,
Talk about HIPAA. The question's about HIPAA.
So first thing is the Migraine Coach app that's on the App Store now is not the same app that was the app that we developed. It's the new one from the company that's being iterated on right now. And HIPAA is we're HIPAA compliant. I mean, is the short answer to that. We are, or we being the new company and the old company, we didn't share that data directly with third parties. We kept it in our own database, and HIPAA's more of a process than it is a protocol. I guess it is a protocol too, but yeah, we're compliant. And I literally, we just sold the company to them, and so now it's theirs, and there's no issue there. But we are integrated with Epic and Lucerne now. Yeah.
So if you have an idea that the there's no new idea completely under the sun, but is scratching at least the surface of a new idea. And you know what an early adopter looks like or should feel like. Do you have any advice, tactical advice on actually surfacing those early adopters and finding those early adopters?
I will always say to go find and just talk to those people and spend some time with them. You can sit in your office and you can think about what your client might like. You can play the Field of Dreams or the Brannigan's Library. If you build it, they will come. Find out what they want and then build that. As much time as you can spend thinking about what they want, you can pick up the phone. You can find someone that's possibly your client, and they will tell you what they want. But it's probably not what you wanted to hear, because then you have to go back to your office and figure that out.
But that's one thing I thought you did really well, Matt, is always not being afraid of seeking out people you know are going to tell you you're full of
You
crap.
once told me,
Like,
Melissa, that you thought my greatest attribute was my ability to take horrible news. And I was like, does that mean you think I'm getting lots of bad news, Melissa?
But you just take it in. I've just seen you grow so much.
I love it, thank you.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
So I think an interesting follow-up on that is, if you can't find an early adopter that isn't willing to talk to you about their problem, then you're probably solving a problem that doesn't need to be solved.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, for us, we found that because we had some early traction, at least on the search optimization, we quickly, and from the very beginning, had a really tight feedback with our users. And we were in constant communication with very dedicated users for years on end, and taking their feedback, integrating with it, and then it was word of mouth for us, especially within like a disease state. There's pretty tight networks there, and people for us.
okay. I know we had a really full hour, and I wish we had a lot more time to just pick the brains of these guys, but are all of you going to be hanging around for just at least for a little bit? Okay, so out of respect for the fabulous space folks that like to follow us on Second Thursday, we're going to take any other questions that you have, or you bring anything you want to do of our panelists out into the community gathering. Thank you so much. Come back next month, we're going to talk about sales.